What's up everyone, happy early 4th of July. We are going road course racing this weekend at Road America on Sunday, July 3rd, I think around 2 or 3 p.m. Eastern, one of those times sometime in the afternoon. But yes, another road course, our third one of the season. Last one at Sonoma, I did not like. I liked that Daniel Suarez won, but it was a pretty boring race for the most part. Nobody could pass. Hopefully it's a little bit better this time around. But as I've always said, I've never been a huge fan of road courses, but for DFS purposes, they tend not to be too bad for me. So hopefully that trend can continue this weekend. But anyway, if you are brand new here, my name is Chris Pennell. I break down the NASCAR DFS slate each and every single weekend on this channel. You can also find me live on Sunday mornings, which I think this week will go around 11 a.m. Eastern, where I'll go live, answer any questions you guys end up having. It's just a good time to hang out, chill before the race starts. I'd highly recommend joining if you haven't yet done so. And you can also find me over on Awesemo, better known as Stochastic these days, doing their live before lock show and writing articles on the website as well. And if you do end up enjoying today's free content, the only thing I ask in return is if you can leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn the notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new content or go live on Sundays. And feel free to leave a comment down below agreeing or disagreeing with anything I had to say throughout the duration of today's video. Or if you just want to tell me hi or I suck, you can certainly do that as well. And if we can once again get this weekend's video over 300 plus likes, I would appreciate it. You guys kill it each and every single week. So thank you for those who do help, as every little bit does go a long way in the YouTube algorithm. And don't forget to check out the sponsor of the show, PrizePicks. They do make these videos possible. And if you are a new signee over there, head over to prizepicks.com, use the link down below or download it on the App Store. And you can use promo code CPEN. Get a free instant deposit match bonus up to $100. There's no strings attached. It is free money. Use it to your advantage, either using the link down below. You can bet your favorite props. And I do have prize pick projections on the spreadsheet to help make it easier for you. So if you want to check it out, like I said, head over to prizepicks.com or download the app. Use the link down below and use promo code CPEN, and it helps us both out. But with that being said, I think that's enough soul selling, so we can get right into the preview of this weekend's race. And as previously mentioned, this is Road America. There's your outline of the track. It is a road course. It is quite long, 4.1 miles in length. It's more of a technical road course. If you're going to compare it to a track more like Sonoma, Coda, Watkins Glen, I would be inclined to do just that, but I'm also throwing in all the road courses we've been at, including the Rovals in some of the projections this weekend. And we only have 62 laps, which means just over 40 dominator points available to us. So dominator points really aren't even something I am considering much of this weekend. Like, yes, if you have the main lap leader in your lineup and they happen to top 5 or win, that will help you out a little bit, but I'm only playing drivers that have good finishing position potential, or they offer me some place differential. Like, yes, Elliott's on the pole this weekend. I am not playing him because he can dominate. Can he do that? Sure, I wouldn't be opposed to him dominating, getting me some more dominator points, but if he does not win the race, or at least come in second with a good chunk of dominator points, good chance he's not in the optimal lineup. So if you were playing drivers close to the front, you were expecting them to stay to the front or potentially to win the race. I'm not playing them as dominators. I will not have dominator groups this weekend. There's just not enough to warrant that. Plus we'll see a bunch of drivers staying out for either stage points or going for the win at the end. So it's going to be back and forth. I don't think we're going to have a driver that stays up front for the majority of the race. If it does, it'll probably be like a Chase Elliott or a Chase Briscoe. Both those guys were fantastic in qualifying. But again, I'm just trying to get the point across. Not playing anybody as a dominator this weekend. It's basically just finishing position potential and place differential for me this weekend. And if for what are my overall thoughts on the pricing for this weekend's slate, I was kind of surprised they had so many drivers that were 10K and above because it's such a short race. Because typically we see at the road courses where maybe we'll have like a Chase Elliott or a Kyle Larson in the 10K range, but kind of surprised. We have 2 drivers above $11,000. Then we have 3 guys in the 10K range. So thought they might be overdid it a little bit, but outside of that, I mean, there's nothing that we can't work around for this weekend's slate. I do have to mention, if you do enjoy the free preview of the sheet that I show you guys on YouTube each and every single weekend, you can get a version for yourself over on the Patreon. The link down below, it includes the projections for all sites, DraftKings, FanDuel, and PrizePicks. And there's a bunch of other stuff besides the sheet that I show you over on YouTube, including articles, optimizer, ownership projections, which are the best in the industry, 24/7 Discord, and quite literally it's always active. So fun place to be in. So if you want to join the best NASCAR DFS community out there, it is the beginning of the month and it is the best time to do so. Lots of extra content over there, simulation scores, my own personal exposures, and much, much more. You can check it out for yourself. I would highly recommend it, and also cover other sports as well. And DraftKings did just update their odds, so if you saw the numbers change, that's why. It happens every single week, so it's like they know right when I'm about to record, so I do appreciate that. But those are the most updated odds to win the race post-qualifying and practice. But anyway, getting into it, up top, we have Kyle Larson, the most expensive driver over on DK, second most over on FanDuel, $11,400. He is starting in third, the second best odds to win this race. Kind of in a tough spot for DraftKings this weekend just because there's not a lot of dominant points and he's starting close to the front. But I certainly think he's a contender to win this race. So if I'm playing tournaments, I'm not going to completely dismiss Kyle Larson. I will have some exposure to him, but I do think I prefer Chase Elliott up top just because I think he's got a better shot to win this race. But both drivers, both pretty fast. I mean, we kind of saw a similar scenario at Sonoma where they both started in the front row after being fast in practice on Saturday. So it looks like just about the same setup as Sonoma, but we just have Chase out in the pole and Kyle Larson's a row back further. But I mean, both these drivers have similar upside in my opinion, and they both have the best odds to win this race over in Vegas, and they've been really the best drivers at road courses the past couple of seasons. So Larson, a little bit more of a safety net starting in third. I just think there's a slimmer chance he leads laps and wins, but I'm fine with either of these drivers in tournaments. Probably not going to get there in cash games though, but both were fast. Larson was faster in practice than Chase Elliott, but Chase Elliott's arguably the best road course racer of all time, has the best odds to win this race, and has good track position to start with. So for me, I'll probably just split them up evenly, but if I'm playing 3 max or single entry, I might have a tougher time getting to either of them just because they don't offer me that place differential. And like I said earlier, not many dominant points to go around. So even if Chase Elliott does lead 20 laps in this race, let's say there's an issue and he ends up finishing 7th, that's not going to get the job done. The same could be said for Kyle Larson. Then dropping down to Kyle Busch, $10,800 on DraftKings. He is starting in 13th, so he has some more PD upside, but the Toyotas have been terrible at road courses this year, and Kyle Busch is a guy that's amazing at technical road courses, but I do have a ton of concerns with the way the JGR cars and the Toyotas have looked at road courses in general, and it kind of showed up in practice and qualifying where they didn't qualify that well, and it was pretty much on par with their practice speeds for the most part. If you're looking at Kyle Busch's numbers in practice, 22nd in the 1 lap, 14th in the 5 lap, and he's also going to the rear to start this race. Not that I'm really concerned about that because I don't need him to get dominant points early on or really have the track position anyway. I'm sure he'll work his way back up into the top 15, but I'm having a hard time seeing really any of the Toyotas contend for a top 10. I mean, the Fords looked really good this weekend, and the Chevys weren't really too far behind. We have one on the pole, obviously, so it's not like they were struggling by any means. Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, all look very strong. So for me personally, I'm going to be pretty low in the Toyotas in general. So Kyle Busch, while I usually would be pretty interested here starting in 13th, they've just been really slow this year, and I'm willing to look at the numbers that they posted and kind of back that for the most part. So I'm not really a huge fan of Kyle Busch this weekend. I'd much rather play the guy right below him, Ross Chastain, $10,300, $500 cheaper. He's starting one spot further above in 12th, but third in the 1 lap in practice. Did not get a 5 lap run, but hard to bet against the Trackhouse cars. They have won both road course races this year. Looking at the recent track history at the technical road courses, I believe we're looking at a 6-race sample size. Chastain's finished in the top 10, 5 out of this past 6 races, averaging 50.2 DraftKings points per race. Obviously has a win under his belt, and he also has the best average green flag speed rating at road courses so far this year. Only a 2-race sample size, but hard to bet against Ross Chastain no matter whatever kind of track that we are at. Road course, super speedway, intermediate, short track. He always tends to get the job done. So starting in 12th, he's my favorite play of this 10K range. I think you can play him in cash games, and I want to be overweight in tournaments. So loving Chastain here. I will have a lot of them. I think he's got a pretty decent chance to win this race. Denny Hamlin, $10,200. He's starting in 14th. And like I said with Kyle Busch, I just really can't back the Toyotas much this weekend. Like I loved them last week because the numbers point to playing them at certain types of tracks. But at the road courses this year, they've been very slow. We saw that at Sonoma, and they backed this up in practice, 28th in the 1 lap, 17th in the 5 lap. I'm just not a big fan of Hamlin or really any of the JGR cars in general, so going to be underweight on him. Same can be said for Martin Truex Jr. He's starting in 15th, and it's kind of nice they all qualified right beside each other. Busch in 13th, Hamlin in 14th, Truex in 15th, and I believe, Christopher Bell was in 16th, so they were like right in lockstep together, although Christopher Bell did show some speed in practice, but we'll talk about him in a little bit here. But speaking of Truex, yes, he's one of the best road course racers ever, but 18th in the 1 lap in practice, 15th in the 5 lap. That did not help him out at Sonoma. He was very slow and very bad. And yes, I know they pit at the end, which kind of killed their day overall, but they still weren't running that well to begin with. So I think being underweight on the Toyotas is probably the best way to approach this slate. Joey Logano, $9,400. He is starting in 18th. Similar to some of the Toyotas, he really didn't show too much speed in practice, but I don't think Logano is necessarily a bad play, but he did finish 17th at Sonoma, 31st at Coda, but he's still overall a pretty good road course racer, but I'm still not overly excited about playing Joey Logano. I would much rather play his teammate right below him, Ryan Blaney, at $9,200, but if you want to get this on Logano, I don't really have a problem with it because of where he's starting, and he should be a top 15, top 12 contender, but I have a hard time seeing him really kind of sneaking to the top 5, top 8 to break the slate. I think Blaney's much more likely to do that. He's starting in 19th, and he's been one of the fastest drivers at road courses so far this year. He has back-to-back 6th place finishes, and even going back to that, 9th at Charlotte Roval last year and 2nd at the Indy Road Course. So that's 4 top 10s in a row for Ryan Blaney. I like this price point. You get one more PD spot than Joey Logano. You can play both. I don't have a problem with that because Blaney and Cindric were both really fast in practice, so I don't think Joey Logano is going to be awful during the race. I just prefer Blaney over Logano if it comes down to it. But Blaney's a guy I think you could play in cash games. If you had like $9,200 left in your lineup, I'd have no problem with that whatsoever. 13th in the 1 lap in practice, 7th in the 5 lap. I do think he's a pretty solid play this weekend. AJ Allmendinger, $9,100. He is starting in 21st. He was complaining about his car a little bit, but he tends to do that, so I'm not going to be overly concerned about it. But the thing with Dinger is he just has awful luck. Like, if you're looking at his road course finishes recently, I know they look pretty bad, but it's not like he's been running this bad at all. 19th at Sonoma, but he was battling, I believe it was power steering, which is something you pretty much need at road courses, but he was still a top 10 contender. But in the last lap, either someone bumped him or he spun, ended up finishing barely inside the top 20, but he was a lot better than that, and that's, again, with an issue he was having with his car the entire day. So that was a pretty impressive run from Allmendinger given the circumstances. Then 33rd at Coda, when he was battling for the lead on the last turn of the race, I believe, ended up getting killed by Bowman and Chastain as they were playing bumper cars with them. Then 38th at the Charlotte Roval last year, but won the Indy Road Course. Like, he has legit race winning upside. He is that good at road courses. I know practice wasn't super impressive for him, but assuming they figure out the kinks to the car, starting in 21st, he has PD upside. I think I'd want to get behind some AJ Allmendinger this weekend. And then William Byron, $9,000 on both sites. He is starting in 29th. Pretty solid at road courses when he doesn't have issues. Finished 33rd at the Indy Road Course last year and 33rd at Coda last year, but 9th at Sonoma, 12th at Coda, 11th at Charlotte Roval. I imagine he's going to contend for a top 15, top 12 finish, and if he does that, starting at nearly 30th place, really hard not to like William Byron. Yes, I know he spun out a couple times, 26th in the 1 lap in practice, but he was also 11th in the 5 lap. If you're playing cash games this weekend, you are playing William Byron. I prefer Byron over the JGR cars as well. He's a little bit cheaper than most of them, so I think he's a fine play. I've not yet read my numbers, so we'll see how he stacks up ownership-wise, but I have a feeling that he'll be one of the highest owned drivers in the entire slate, if not the highest owned driver, just because the price point's pretty soft on Byron, consistently battling for top 12s at road courses, starting in nearly 30th, and he's a Hendrick car. Hard not to really like William Byron at all here. Then dropping down to the 8K range, we have Christopher Bell, $8,900 on DraftKings. He is starting in 16th. If you were going to play a JGR driver this weekend, I think Christopher Bell is the one I would want to. I mean, he was 12th in the 1 lap in practice, 6th in the 5 lap, and really the only other Toyotas can't really claim any speed this weekend. That's Bubba. He was top 12 in the 5 lap, but Bell was definitely the best of all the Toyotas and the JGR cars, so he would be the one I'd be inclined to play, but I still probably won't go too overboard on him. We did finish 3rd at Coda earlier in the season. 27th at Sonoma was absolutely awful, but a very good road course racer. I'm fine playing him. Like I said, if I'm going to play a Toyota driver, I think Christopher Bell's the one I probably get to the most of. Kurt Busch, $8,700 on DraftKings. He's starting in 22nd. Like I said, just struggled in practice, but really besides Bell for the most part. 34th in the 1 lap. He was awful at Sonoma. Made some ground at the end of the race, but man, he was really, really bad. He didn't even have any issues. He was just insanely slow during that race. So yes, while there is PD upside here starting in 22nd, I think there's a decent chance he kind of just rides around there for the most part. I'd rather play these drivers starting closer to the front. While they are more risky, they showed me a lot more speed on Saturday, and I feel a bit more confident in them. Like I said, even though they are riskier starting close to the front, I think there's a better chance they stay closer to the front than I think there's a chance where Kurt Busch is battling for a top 10 during this race. So Tyler Reddick, he's starting in 4th, $8,600 on DraftKings, very fast in practice, 2nd in the 1 lap and 1st in the 5 lap. I think he's going to be a pretty good tournament play here because I don't think a lot of people are going to play him starting in 4th, but we know he's got upside at road courses. He's brought speed at them in the past. 5th at Coda earlier in the year, 2nd at Charlotte Roval last year, and also put up a 8th place finish at Coda last season. So starting in 4th, he's got good track position to work with. I think he can kind of hold a top 5 position for the majority of the day, and as long as he doesn't screw up, I think he'll be an interesting tournament play, and he could honestly pick up a win. I wouldn't be that surprised about it. He does have a pretty strong card this weekend. Austin Cindric, $8,500 on DraftKings, a lot more expensive over on FanDuel. He's starting in 5th. Another guy that was really fast in practice. As you can see, a nice cluster of dark green here in the 8K range. But he was 4th in the 1 lap, 3rd in the 5 lap. We know Austin Cindric is an excellent road course racer. Had 4 wins with him in the Xfinity Series. And if you're looking at his recent finishes, 5th at Sonoma, 8th at Coda. He's been one of the better drivers, average green flag speed-wise, so far this season at the 2 road course races. So Cindric being as a very similar play to Tyler Reddick here, where I'd get there in tournaments. Probably not in cash games, though. I don't think he's the worst cash game play because he's a great road course racer, but you are kind of pushing it because I'd rather take the PD in cash games just for the safety net. And then Chase Briscoe, $83 on DraftKings, only 78 over on FanDuel. He's starting in 2nd. We know he's a good road course racer. I think there's a chance he can win this race. It's going to be kind of hard to get to a lot of Briscoe because he's starting right beside Elliott in the front row, and I would imagine Elliott's probably going to lead early on over Chase Briscoe. Whatever happens after that, who the heck knows? I think he can kind of contend for a top 5 for most of the day. He was very fast in practice, and I was really surprised he did not get the pole because I believe it was in round 1. He was 0.4 or 0.5 faster than his entire group, but Chase Elliott put up a great lap in round 2 qualifying, ended up beating him out, but he was 1st in the lap in practice. He's got some of the best odds to win this race over in Vegas, only behind Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson, so I think he'll run well for the majority of the race. It's just a matter of, he's probably not going to get you many dominant points if he finishes 4th or 5th. That's probably not going to be optimal if guys like Kevin Harvick, Daniel Suarez, all those drivers move up and kind of smash their PD spots. So he's a riskier play. I'll play some in tournaments, but definitely not going to get there in cash games. Alex Bowman, $8,200 on DraftKings. He is starting in 8th. Practice wasn't super impressive for him, was 15th in the 1 lap. Obviously qualified pretty well, but he is pretty good at road courses, so I'll play some of him in tournaments. I do think drivers like Briscoe, Cindric, and Reddick might pick up some more ownership. So Bowman could be a little bit of a pivot there, especially being priced right beside Kevin Harvick. Because if DFS players are rostering guys like Reddick, Cindric, and Briscoe, they're not going to want to pair them with Alex Bowman because you already have a couple drivers sitting closer to the front. They'd be more inclined to go with Kevin Harvick there. So Bowman could be a sneaky play this weekend. Good at road courses. I don't hate him. I don't think he's going to win like Suarez did in a similar spot last weekend starting in 8th. But he could be a sneaky top 5, top 4 guy. And the last driver in the 8K range here, very loaded 8K range, lots of good plays here. I mean, you can make a case for all of these guys really, but Kevin Harvick, $8,100. I imagine he's going to be quite popular if you're playing cash games this weekend. I'd recommend getting Kevin Harvick in there. Only $16 on FanDuel, going to be very popular over there as well. But starting in 28th, it's hard not to like him, especially with what he did at Sonoma just a couple weeks ago. I know he sucked in practice, 32nd in the 1 lap, 20th in the 5 lap, but we've seen a lot of times this year where Kevin Harvick's practice speeds really don't translate during the race. Like, he was very slow at Nashville in practice, ended up being one of the best drivers in the field during that race. And I can't remember the Sonoma practice numbers, but I feel like they weren't that impressive either. But he ran very well during that race, and if you're looking at the finishes of the road course, this year for Kevin Harvick, 4th at Sonoma, 11th at Coda, 14th last year at the Indy Road Course, 8th at Watkins Glen. If he finishes in the top 20 this weekend, you're not going to complain, but I think he could be a top 15 contender. And if he does that at his price point for where he's starting, Kevin Harvick will be one of the better plays in the slate, so I'll have a decent chunk of him this weekend. Plus the Fords and Chevys definitely seem to have a leg up on the field this weekend. And moving down to the 7K range, which I don't think I've ever seen a 7K range this small before, but we only have 3 drivers this weekend. We have like 8 in the 8K range, we have like 10 in the 6K range. So again, like I said, interesting pricing this weekend. But Daniel Suarez, $7,700 on DraftKings, up to $11,500 over on FanDuel. So a pretty big price discrepancy on these sites this weekend. But I would imagine Suarez is going to have quite a bit of ownership this weekend. Starting in 17th, we have some PD upside, and he just won in Sonoma, was pretty much the best car in the field, absolutely killed it. It was really cool to see get him his first Cup win. Will he win again? Probably not, but I think he's a pretty solid play this weekend starting in 17th, because if I liked him starting 7th or 8th whenever he did at Sonoma, I don't see why I wouldn't like him starting in 17th. He was 10th in the 1 lap in practice, 5th in the 5 lap. The Trackhouse cars just seem to have the cheat cars at the road courses this year, so while Suarez's track history at some of these numbers, I mean, a lot of them were in poor equipment, but last year got very unlucky. 37, 31st, 36. He's a pretty good road course racer so far this season. I am not willing to bid against Suarez. If you want to play him in cash games, no problem with that whatsoever. There's a decent chance he could make my cash game lineup. We'll end up seeing. I feel like I'll be more overexposed to Suarez, though, than I would Eric Jones or Eric Almirola, even though they offer more place differential upside. But, I mean, Suarez has just ran so well with them, and Jones really, really struggled at Sonoma, and plus Eric Almirola's not really a guy I'm too fond of playing at road courses. And if you look at the odds to win in Vegas, there's a real big difference there. Suarez sitting at plus 2,000 and 25,000 for Eric Jones and Eric Almirola. So Suarez is definitely one of my favorite mid-range plays of the weekend, and if he's going to be lower owned than Harvick, I'd have a slight inclination to want to go overweight on Suarez than I would Harvick, but both are very solid plays. Eric Jones, though, $7,300. He's starting all the way back in 27th. He sucked in practice, was really, really slow. 33rd in the one lap in practice. And while he's usually a pretty good road course racer, he sucked at Sonoma. I did finish 9th at Dakota, but he was not 22nd good at Sonoma. Early on, he did kind of race his way close to the top 20, but he spun so many times. He struggled, and really the only reason he gained spots at the end was because, so many guys pit trying to take a different strategy, and he just stayed out and gained some spots. Ended up not being the worst DFS play in the world for where he started. But 9th at Dakota early in the season, he's kind of a tricky case this weekend, but if you're just looking at the practice speeds, he was super slow. Odds don't look that great. I'll play him just because of where he's starting. If you don't play him in cash games, go for it. But personally for me, I'd rather play some Daniel Suarez, but as long as Eric Jones just doesn't wreck, assuming some other things happen to other drivers, he should attempt for a top 20 and not terrible for the price point. Eric Almirola, $7,100. He's starting in 24th, finished 14th at Sonoma, 19th at Dakota. I think he can gain some spots, but will it be enough to be optimal? Probably not. I'd rather play Jones, I'd rather play Suarez, and I'd rather play Stenhouse right below him, so I'm not going to have too much Eric Almirola exposure. I'd expect him to be pretty low owned. Do I think he could attempt for a top 20? Sure, but like Eric Jones, is very slow. 31st in the one lap and then 23rd in the 5 lap. Moving down to the 6K range, a pretty loaded 6K range. I think we actually have quite a few good plays down here, but Ricky Stenhouse, he's starting in 33rd. I'd expect him to be popular. 27th in the one lap in practice, 18th in the 5 lap. It's not like he's a road course master or anything. He's actually got some pretty poor numbers here at the technical road courses, averaging 17 DraftKings points per race with an average finish of 25th. Which is right on par with his average running position and only 2 top 20s the past 6 races. And if you're looking at the recent finishes for him, 25th and 37th, but people are going to play Stenhouse starting in 33rd. Is he a bit of a trap play? Probably. Like I said, I'd feel like I'd rather play Suarez if you're grouping them all together. And I might end up playing more McDowell than I will Stenhouse. We'll see what happens, but I don't think I'm going to try to be too overweight on Stenhouse. Could he kind of luck into a top 20? Sure, that's certainly possible if the right strategy happens or if there's enough wrecks, but that's not something I'd really bank on. He's a safe play, but I feel like the upside could be lacking for him. Michael McDowell, $6,800. He is starting in 6th, and while that's a bit of a tough starting spot, we saw at Sonoma where I was like, I'm probably not playing McDowell because of where he's starting, but he was able to hold his own. He's pretty good at road courses. He was 8th in the one lap in practice, and he's had some speed this year. And if you're looking at the odds to win in Vegas, plus 2,500. A lot better than plus 50,000 for Stenhouse, a lot better than Eric Jones and Eric Almirola. So that's something I always try to consider at least a little bit. And he finished 3rd at Sonoma, 13th at Dakota. I think he can be a top 5, top 8 contender at that price point. I think he's worth playing some for sure. Only in tournaments though, would I go there in cash games. Brett Keselowski, $6,600. He is starting in 11th. Going to be tough for me to get to too much Keselowski here. Did finish 10th at Sonoma, 14th at Dakota, but the upside's kind of shot for where he's starting at 11th. Like if he was starting around 20th or 24th, yeah, I'd play some Brad Keselowski, but starting at 11th, we basically need like a top 8, top 10 finish to even be viable. Because really, for him to be viable, it definitely is probably have to be in the top 10, which I don't really see happening. He was 8th in the 5 lap in practice, but 19th in the 1 lap. I'd be kind of surprised if he improves upon his starting position, and if he doesn't do that, he's not going to be in the optimal. So I'm probably going to not have much Keselowski whatsoever. I'll have some, but nothing too substantial. Bubba Wallace, $6,500. He's starting in 25th. I hate playing Bubba at road courses. He just has an awful track record at them. And I hate really the potatoes at road courses so far this year. And if you're looking at the technical road courses for Bubba Wallace since last year, average finish of 29th, running position not too far behind, and really just 1 top 20 finish of those 6 races. And starting in 25th, while he was kind of fast in practice, 16th in the 1 lap and 12th in the 5 lap, I think he's worth playing a little bit. I think he could be a top 20 guy, but man, he just has some awful luck at road courses. He's just not a good road course racer in general, so I'd have some limited exposure to Bubba. I feel like I'd rather play Buescher, $6,300. He's starting in 7th, much better odds to win this race over in Vegas, 6th in the 1 lap in practice. Bad things happen in the 5 lap. I'm willing to look past that because he put up a fast qualifying session, so he's definitely not going to be a top 25 car. I think he's going to be more of a top 10 contender during this race. And he's typically very consistent at road courses. Not usually a guy you'd expect to get a top 5, but pretty much always in the top 20 for the most part. If you're looking at the past 9 races at road courses, he's been in the top 28 out of those past 9 races with an average finish of 12.6. And recently, 2 of the past 3 races at road courses, he's finished inside the top 3. So I definitely don't mind Chris Buescher here. And if you do like Chris Buescher, I mean, I guess that should mean you should like some Brad Keselowski. But again, I would prefer Buescher. Just a little bit cheaper, but both are pretty similar plays for the most part. But the price discount lands me on a little bit more Buescher, and he was a little bit faster in practice if you're looking at the 1-lap session numbers. Dropping down to Austin Dillon, $6,200. He is starting in 20th. Not necessarily a bad play in my opinion. I know we don't typically view Austin Dillon as a great road course racer, but the past couple of seasons, he's really improved and really been a top 50 contender just about each and every single time. 17th in the 1-lap in practice, but 9th in the 5-lap. For where his price point is, he's priced with guys like Custer, Todd Gillen, which I think might be a bit of a mistake. I think he should be above like a Bubba Wallace, in my opinion, above a Brad Keselowski. Probably closer to $7,000. So just looking for a cheap driver with an average finish of 12th the past 6 road course races, the more technical road courses, Austin Dillon is your guy. So I don't think he's a bad play. Custer at $6,100. He's starting in 10th. The Fords have speed this weekend. He was 11th in the 1-lap in practice. Not usually a driver I tend to roster at road courses too often. I mean, 21st, 23rd, 18th, 25th, 18th, 17th. I'm not going to have much Custer, but if you think he can hang around the top 10, not a bad tournament play, but he's a pretty risky play though. Todd Gillen, $6,000. He is starting in 32nd. We have our first plus 100,000 odd driver over in Vegas. He was super slow in practice. 36th in the 1-lap, 24th in the 5-lap. If you are playing Todd Gillen, you are hoping for some carnage and for him to gain 10 spots. And I just don't really see that happening. But 16th at Coda, 24th at Sonoma. I don't think he's the worst play out there. But if he contends for a top 25, it's fine. But usually we get Gillen in like the lower 5K range at $6,000. I'd rather play Dillon. I'd much rather play the driver right below him. So I wouldn't have much Gillen that kind of alleviated price point. Dropping down to the 5K range, Justin Haley, under $6,000, 34th. Hard not to like him. He's finished 12th at Sonoma, 15th at Coda. I imagine he's going to be the popular punt driver this weekend, and I can certainly get on board with that. Don't really see a reason not to like him. Also finished top 10 in the Indy road course last year. So there is some upside here for Justin Haley. Definitely should not be cheaper than Todd Gillen, in my opinion. So I would take that all day, starting 34th. I really can't see him losing spots, and honestly, he should contend for a top 25, maybe even a top 20. Moving on to Ty Dillon, $5,500. Usually, I always say the same thing about Ty Dillon, where he was super slow in practice, qualified poorly, he's cheap, but he's probably going to gain 10 spots. Well, he was actually fast in practice this time, so I might just gain 10 spots just based off of his speed alone, because he was 9th in the 1-lap in practice, and then 4th in the 5-lap. That's better than a lot of really good drivers. I think he's going to run top 5. No, but I think he can be a top 20 contender. And if you're looking at Ty Dillon's numbers at road courses, 23rd at Sonoma, 20th at Coda. Obviously didn't race full-time last year. But if you're looking at the past 5 races at road courses, talking about a driver that's averaging 13.6 place differential spots per race, positive place differential spots. So don't think Ty Dillon's a bad play whatsoever at his price point. I think him and Justin Haley are very similar plays, although I'd still like Justin Haley a little bit more. Joey Hand, $5,200. I know he's in a Rick Ware car, but he has been straight speed so far this weekend. 7th in the 1-lap in practice, 16th in the 5-lap, qualified in the top 10. Honestly, I thought he was going to get the pole for a second because he was tracking green and having an issue on one of the turns. But yeah, that would have been really fun if we saw Joey Hand on the pole. I wouldn't have played him, but it would have been really cool to see. I think he's interesting. I feel weird saying this for a Rick Ware car sitting inside the top 10, but he's fast. He's a good road course racer, obviously one of the ringers. And you know, if something where Ty Dillon, Justin Haley can't get out of the top 25 and Joey Hand's just kind of chilling around 10th to 11th place, that's not bad at his price point, even though he's lost a couple of spots. So keep Joey Hand on your tournament radars, but do not go there in cash games. Corey LaJoie, $5,100. He's starting in just about the very back, but kind of ran there in practice. 35th in the 1-lap and 22nd in the 5-lap. If you're looking at his finishes at road courses recently, it's not been pretty. 34th at Sonoma, 36th at Coda, and 35th at Charlotte Roval. I feel like you can only go one way, and that is up for Corey LaJoie, but you could have said that the past few times, and that's not really been the case. So he's got top 25 upside, but he's had some real bad luck at road courses, and at that point, I'd rather just play Justin Haley, Ty Dillon personally. When it comes to Joey Hand versus Corey LaJoie, it's going to depend on your build. If you already have a lot of drivers in the bank, maybe you go with the Joey Hand, but he's a pretty risky play. But I am tempted to play him this weekend. And Harrison Burton, $5,000, starting 23rd, kind of qualified a little bit high for me. Finished 17th at COTA though, 20th at Sonoma. Not necessarily a bad play, but there's some risk here. Rookie driver, but he is very cheap, but he's just not been very good this year. And then after Burton, you get into the thick of it with a Cody Ware, Josh Bilicki, Cal Tilley, who's super slow. No chance I'm going to play him this weekend. And Heismans, whatever it is. Either way, I'm not playing him, so I don't really care. He was 30th in the lap in practice and 25th in the 5 lap. So out of all the junkers this weekend, I would say he's probably my favorite. Did finish 34th at COTA, but I'm probably just going to end up Xing all these guys out. And Josh Bilicki, if he was starting in the 30s, he would definitely be my favorite cheap driver of not like of the 5K drivers, but of just the pure junk drivers in the 4K range. I would say Bilicki would be my favorite, but starting 26th, the upside is kind of capped. But he has improved upon that a couple races in the past at road courses. But I mean, for real, I'm probably just not going to play any of these drivers. But with that being said, I think that'll be it for the video. So if you made it all the way through, please let me know in the comments. I truly do appreciate you. And if you want to check out Patreon, is the best time of the month to do so. It's the beginning, so all the races for the month. And we also cover other sports as well, including baseball, which are really only 2 sports on currently. So if you want to check it out, link can be found down below. All the projections, optimizer, ownership projections, cheat sheet, power rankings, whatever it is, you name it, it's probably on the spreadsheet. Tons of information, including pit times, which I know a lot of people are always interested in. So something to think about. And checking out the sponsor of the show, Prize Picks, to make these videos possible. You can use promo code CPEN to get that free instant deposit match bonus up to $100. Check it out, link down below, or head over to prizepicks.com. Check me out on Twitter at ChrisPennell16, CPEN16 over on IG. I wish you all the best of luck this weekend, and happy early 4th of July.